Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of NFIHammer. In this episode I will be painting my very first Tyranid ever, and one of the first organic alien life forms that I've ever painted before. So should be interesting. If you've been following along on my journey, I'm a beginner that started a little over 6 months ago, and I'm documenting my entry into the hobby just to let other beginners or people thinking about starting to know that it's not too scary and it's okay to make mistakes. So these guys look kind of cute and a little bit terrifying. I recently got the Leviathan box, so I thought I would start with the smallest models in here and kind of work my way up so I can kind of practice some skills, and if I need to kind of repaint the whole model from scratch, that should be okay to do with the smaller models. Go check out my video if you haven't watched it, if you want to see what's in the Leviathan box. If we look at what's in the data sheets for these little guys, it's because I'm also trying to start playing the hobby, and I played my first game on the weekend and I got absolutely destroyed, so I'm trying to learn more about the units as I'm sort of painting them so I know how they kind of fit in on the tabletop. These guys kind of have a very restricted 6-inch movement and a very 6-inch pistols, which is good because you can shoot that melee range, and then just a 1 damage attack. So they don't seem very good to me because I am familiar with the Necron Canoptic Scarab Swarms, which have more movement and a cool self-destruction ability and stuff, so I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but they don't seem that great. At the moment, just interested in painting them, so the assembly of these were pretty straightforward. They're probably one of the simplest models I've ever really assembled, I think. They're just kind of, you cut them out the sprue, clean them up, and just put them on the base. So there really isn't anything to it. One thing that I did find really disappointing is that Games Workshop have only included one of these per 10 terminons, or whatever they're called, and you need 3 for a unit, so unless you're going to get 30 you can't actually get a full set, and there's only 20 in the box, so I don't know what's going on with Games Workshop. That seems a little bit weird, but anyway. To spray paint it, I'm using flat white primer from Bunnings. It's only about $17. I did a video comparing the Wraithbone primer with the white primer, and really it doesn't matter too much if you do an undercoat, so I'm not really gonna bother wasting the expensive primer on these little models. So this is what the finished product looks like. They're pretty cool. The white really brings out a lot of the details. Unfortunately though, because they're so tightly bunched together, some of the spray paint didn't really get into all of the nooks and crannies, so in hindsight I should have probably split these apart and primed them individually, but you know, too late to go back in time. So to get started, I'm using the Reikland Fleshshade. I'm diluting it about 50%, maybe even more, with water, just to kind of give it quite a light coat. And again, it's kind of hard to get it into the nooks and crannies because they're all bunched together. Once that had dried, I then did the Druchii Violet shade. So this gives it a nice purple aesthetic to it. And I'm just trying to stain the tail and the face and some of the limbs with that purple, so it kind of looks a little bit more alien. One skill that I've been trying to work on the last couple of months is dry brushing. So I've got a stolen makeup brush from my wife, and I'm just giving a bit of Corax White, and then I'm trying to get as much of the brush as possible, and then I just do a really light coat over the Ripper Swarms. I don't really know if it's actually doing anything, but it doesn't really hurt and doesn't take too long. But yeah, let me know if you've got any advice for how to improve my dry brushing in the comments below. One thing that I couldn't get out of my mind when I was assembling and priming these models was the "would you love me if I was a worm" meme, and I just, every time I was painting these, I just couldn't get out of my head, so I had to create this meme and put it out there on the internet to see what people thought, or maybe my brain is just very weird. Anyway, back to painting. I started with Phoenician Purple to do the carapace. This required a couple of coats because of the bright white undercoat, and I actually found this was quite difficult because I was trying not to get any on the body because I didn't want to have to go over it again. After that it was Abaddon Black. This one was much easier in that it was only required a single coat mainly for all the claws and talons. Then for the eyes I thought I'd try Phalanx Yellow. I don't know if this is a normal eye colour, but I thought yellow seemed pretty cool. I don't have a very good brush, so my yellow paint kind of ended up going a little bit over the body, so definitely need to keep practicing my eyes. Bugman's Glow was for the tongue, so this was actually fairly straightforward. I think Games Workshop did a good job with the models here to make the tongue very easy to kind of paint without having to worry about getting paint everywhere. After that it was Corax White, so with this I thought I'd kind of go over the teeth, because the teeth were the same colour as the skin, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Again, my brushes are really substandard, and I ended up getting some white paint in the mouth, so I had to go back with Abaddon Black and do the teeth again, so that was a bit annoying. And then, just because I happen to have these two colours on my palette, I decided to mix them and then just do an edge highlight of the tongue. I really don't think it made any difference, but it's worth a shot. So with the Nuln Oil, I started off with the teeth. I was a bit worried that it's going to make the teeth quite dark, but it kind of settled in all the grooves, and I think it really did help the mouth pop a little bit. And then I put the carapace with a light shade of the Nuln Oil just on the top, like 60-70% of each segment, just to kind of darken it a little bit. And then I thought I'd try a new technique that I've never done before called feathering. So with this one I just got a small size 1 brush and I just kind of drew lines, I guess, on the bottom 60% of each segment. So I noticed here my brush quality was really bad, and I'm kind of drawing almost squares or rectangles rather than lines, so I definitely think I need to invest in a better brush. I also don't know if I'm really doing this technique properly or not. It does look kind of weird, but from a distance it looks good. And then I thought to do the same process again, but with the Dechala Lilac, but instead of going all the way up, just kind of like the little bit at the end. Again, I think this is probably, you know, not the right brush to use, and I also think that the purple colour here is actually a bit too light. I also tried to do like edge highlighting down the spine, but that didn't really work out either. I've been saving this Warpstone Glow for a Necron, and I haven't actually had a chance to use it, but I noticed there was an egg sac on one of the bases, so I thought it'd be a good time to kind of use it, as it was a bit of a darker, more foresty green. So I painted all that, but then I realized that it was too green and it needed some more colors to break it up. So I'm using Averland Sunset here to kind of paint the eggs. I watered it down too much, so it was actually creating droplets of water, or paint I should say, but it actually kind of worked in a nice kind of aesthetic look to it, because the eggs are also droplet dye shapes, so it's kind of a happy accident. I did have to go and fix up one of them though, because it went a bit too far. And then for the destroyed rubble, Adminstratum Grey, for that it was kind of pretty straightforward. And then for the bases, I haven't really decided what my Tyranid base is going to be. I'm going to wait a little while until I've done more models to try and, you know, figure out which one I think works best. So for now I just did Rhinox Hide, and I just painted the whole base for that. And then I got Runelord Brass, and you'd probably be like, NFIHammer, why are you doing Runelord Brass again? This isn't a Necron, but For the rubble, there's little bits of metal sticking out. So I thought might as well paint this colour to kind of make it look a little bit more interesting. For the little bits of debris or base decoration, they were looking a bit too clean, so I thought Agrax Earthshade would be a good shade because I can just kind of throw the same shade over everything. I think, you know, I'd probably use something different for the destroyed rubble building, maybe that sepia wash, but I just thought at this point I'll just use the same wash for both. It actually looked pretty good. What I did notice was that the parts that were painted well look really good with a wash, and the parts that painted bad still look bad with a wash, so I really think it kind of just elevates good painting. But I don't know if that's a real theory or not. So anyway, after all of that, I was kind of ready to call it as done. What I found was it was actually really hard to take a good video of the Tyranids. I don't know if it's just because these models are small, or I'm just used to painting Necrons, but any video I took was really not great. I think maybe I need to experiment more with the lighting. But if you've got any comments below, let me know. The photo turned out much better, but it still doesn't look as good as in real life. You can see here that the eyes, you know, it definitely needs some work to kind of keep them discreet and in the socket. And you can see the feathering effect kind of has quite large brush strokes, which is not great, but overall I'm kind of happy with the model and how it turned out. I think that for my very first Tyranid that I've ever done, it's not too bad. It did take a lot of time to do these 2 models, or 8 models I guess, depending on how you count it, so I'm a bit worried how long the whole Leviathan box is going to take, but I guess maybe I'll get faster at it. And you can see here the egg sac and the destroyed rubble kind of turned out okay, and also you can see that the teeth here are really clearly defined. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Let me know if you've got any suggestions or feedback or how you found the video, and also if you can like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel a lot. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.